of filling out a resume. This is really important, and that's why I think it's important to go over all of these tips and these ideas that are going to help you be awesome, and people will notice your resume when you send it to them. It's very important to know these things. So let's get right into it. Let's say you haven't updated in the last 10 years, which would be horrible. You should update it every so often. So you have to think about updating your resume for the next career move you're going to make. So a buddy of mine was looking for a job, and these following 8 strategies are what I gave him to help him to get a job within 19 days. And so that sounds kind of crazy, but I'm telling you, it works. So follow these strategies. For 2023 resume writing tip, here's number 1. Answer these 5 questions before you get started. What am I targeting? What role am I targeting? So your resume needs to be geared towards that specific job. Even if it's within the same company, that position has to be targeted, and that's how the resume needs to be written out. Employers want to hire specialists, not generalists. Another question, what companies am I targeting? Knowing the type of company you want to go to work for helps to narrow down your research and helps you to be more focused on that particular goal and more specific in your writing. You can speak to the company's main objectives, what they're looking for, and how you can fit that role. And the research you're doing is going to be for that particular role. And that way you can kind of fill in what they need. Another question is, what challenges are they facing? So write some resume bullets that showed you've encountered and you've accomplished or covered those things in previous employment to show how you've overcome those obstacles. And the best thing is to include some results. Now, what skills are critical to success? So to answer this question tells you exactly what keywords and hard skills you need to include in your resume. If you don't know where to look, there's many websites you can go to and start looking for positions like that on LinkedIn. LinkedIn will give you the top 15 skills and keywords that are needed for a resume. And the last question in those 5 is, how do I add value? Your resume needs to show that you can add value to the company you're looking at. And you have to do it in a way that it means something to the new employer. Focus on accomplishments that would resonate with the new employer or the company you're researching. So when you fill that out, it's got to be something that they will really appreciate and want to be part of their company. Tip number 2, write for the future. Before updating your resume, be sure to make sure you're positioning yourself for the company that you're targeting, the job you're targeting. That's why the questions, those 5 questions, are so crucial, because those things need to be considered before you even start. Your experience, your achievements, your accomplishments are all part of the resume, but equally as important as the information you provide. How, where, why, all of which are based on the goals for your next career move. So when you write your resume, you're not writing about the past. You have to write about the future. Where you're going, what you're going to be doing in the future, and how your resume shines and showing that you're writing for the future. So you're positioning yourself for your next career move. All right, so what I'm gonna do is read a few things here to help you understand exactly what needs to be done. You need to do this. Review job postings to gather data and insight. Where do you have related skills and experience in education, qualifications? Identify your top skills that match the opportunities that you're interested in. Reweigh your skills and accomplishments. So you're going to put the emphasis on professional, technical, and academic skills that align with that new position you're going for. I don't recommend putting in an objective at the top of your resume. Instead, put in targeting positions title at the top of your resume in bold. It specifically leaves no doubt in the role in which you're looking for. Number 3, avoid cringe-worthy words. One of the quickest ways to improve your resume is to get rid of the passive words, passive language that you're adding, that you might have to it. And you need to have active language. Now, how do we do that? So this top 10 list of cringe-worthy words I'm gonna have on the list here. They're going to help you understand not to use these, okay? If you want your resume to make a good first impression, you're going to completely take out these words, these useless words, with more meaningful alternatives. And here they are. Demonstrated success in. Number 2, proven results. Number 3, successful or success. Result-driven, result-oriented, excellent communication skills, responsible for. Duties include seasoned, accomplished, worked with / served as. And lastly, I strongly urge that you use this with caution. Team player. So using this once is okay, but if you start to use it more than once, it starts to give the employers a negative view of you or a negative impression of this resume. So what words and phrases do you use instead of the normal ones you normally do? Instead of demonstrating success or proven results, show the employer results using data and numbers and the metrics and how you've done well. You can use the formula of CAR, C-A-R, which stands for Challenge, Action, Results. It's something that people use a lot, especially when they're talking about update, when they want the matrix of their last job or their last few jobs to really show how good they are and what they've done in the past. So share the challenge that you faced, the actions you've taken to address the challenge, and the data and numbers that show the results. So this provides proof to your employer that you've done a job well, and it shows the proven results when you can bring that to them and show them the results. The same goes for the term successful, success, result-oriented, or result-driven. Instead of using these vague terms, simply tell the story of how you've accomplished what you've done through the CAR, the CAR formula. So replace the phrases that you use when you say excellent communication skills and team player with examples of how you use your communication skills in accomplishing that task. It also shows them that you're a team player. Words that can help you to express this or show them that you're a team player are influenced, empowered, negotiated, advocated, advised, or enabled. You always want to show and not tell. So when you tell your story, paint a picture of what you've done in the past, and that shows what you're going to do in the future. So give examples as you would in an interview, all the while remembering that this can't be a very long resume. It needs to be short. Be sure to look at the job description you're applying for. What are the main requirements of that job description? Are you contract negotiation, budget management? Well, whatever it is. Replace responsible for budget management with managed a $3 million plus annual budget. That way you're not just telling them what you can do, you're showing them how you can work with numbers and how you actually accomplish something. Seasoned and accomplished are two very overused phrases that a lot of people use over and over. And some people interpret them negatively. Now, these terms can be construed as overused, out of date, or worse, they could implicate age bias. And then they start to assuming that the candidate is too old for that position. Now, I'm not condoning this. As a matter of fact, I abhor the fact that there might even be age bias. But I bring it up because it's out there and it happens way too often, more than it should. So until this changes, we have to guard ourselves by making sure we have the right terminology, things that we say that are correct, because it is out there. I mean, these things are out there, and we have to try to gear our resume so that it doesn't affect that, or it doesn't be put into that category. So it's better to just discuss some of the areas in which you're experienced in, listing industries, hard skills, functions of the role, professional or technical skills, academic credentials, etc., all of those things. These terms are specific and communicate more clarity than just a general statement. You don't want to say anything like seasoned sales executive or accomplished professional. So I see these on resumes quite a bit, and it has nothing to do with who you are or how good you are in the field of your expertise. And it really doesn't show what you're capable of doing. I'm also not a fan of worked with or served as. Both these terms are passive terms. So if you've worked on a budget committee and you've done things that are like that, be specific about what you've done. Name names. Tell them what you've done and who you've done it with, and what you've accomplished with the collaboration you guys did together. Action verbs are one of the best ways that you can improve your resume. So if you use action points with the bullets on your resume, it not only communicates actions and achievements, it helps them to see that the challenges you face and what you've done to achieve those challenges. It's hard to start a sentence with transformed, increased, or achieved without following it up with something measurable, specific, and relevant. I have a link below, 170 action verbs that you can use, and that link will help you see all of these and how effective they are in using them in your resume. Not that you got to use all of them, but it gives you an idea of what's going to help you to make your resume sound better. And that's in the link below. So number 4, write a better resume with bullet points. So the number one thing that I hear from job seekers is how difficult it is for them to write about their accomplishments, what they've done over the years of the jobs that they've had or been part of. One of the best ways to do this is tell a story. Stories are something I've always talked about, and I think stories make it better. Not only do you memorize the story better, but if you can write in a story form, even on your resume, and just have bullet points for those stories, it's going to accomplish a lot, and it's going to show what you've done, your achievements. And then still we find that most people struggle with writing about themselves. So in order to write a story about yourself or to write about yourself, there's a way to do that. There's a formula to doing that, and I've talked about that in some of my other videos as well. And in fact, I talked about it in the last one, the CAR program. CAR. Challenge, action, results. It's very easy. You can even look it up on the internet and find out exactly what the CAR formula does and how to do it. Number 2, describe the challenge you faced in industrial language, the terms that they use, specific field you're in, so that you can tell them exactly what happened and how it happened. Think professional, technical, and academic hard skills. Those are what you need to do to describe this particular challenge. Number 3, talk about the quantifiable, measurable results that you were, or the actions you took to resolve the problem that you faced. So if you struggle with finding quantifiable data that you can use, try to contrast your past and present performance, or maybe even use some industrial standards that you know personally of how one thing has gone from bad to worse and gotten better, and how it's been repaired or resolved. So ask yourself questions like how much, how many, when, before and after, to what end. These questions will give you quantifiable data that you can work with. These questions will help you discover the data you may be looking for. Let's go to number 5. Give the reader context. Provide the reader or the interviewer that is reading your resume with information that is going to give them background information to help them understand and appreciate your accomplishment. It simply makes your achievements more impressive. You could say that you increased annual revenues by 23%, but when you give the situation context, you could say something like increased the company's revenue 32% in spite of the 2020 downturn. Now the reader can understand the impact and the depth of the accomplishment and how truly impactful it was. It's also a good idea to let them know if you were hired for a specific role and to accomplish certain tasks in that particular company you were with. Perhaps you were hired to try to upbuild or increase sales because they were declining, or you were there to improve company culture or revamp the operational process. Add meaning and impact to your resume by sharing the context of that situation. Step number 6, give your resume more wow. So we've all been there. We want to make our resume stand out. We want it to pop, so to speak. We all want somebody to look at our resume and say, oh, wow, this is the guy I want, right? But what exactly is the wow factor, and how can you get your resume to strike like that, to be the wow factor? How can we do that? The wow factor is the most important and valuable information about you as a candidate. It's the top 2 or 3 things that you want the employer to know about you. Those important things, so that they can be impressed when they look at the resume and they can't wait to read the rest of it. So the wow factor is also part of your personal brand. So it distinguishes you out from the other candidates that are applying for the same job. So it has to be prominent throughout your resume. It has to be there, especially in the beginning. It has to look like you're something different than the rest of everybody else, so that it won't be missed, and it's instantly putting your best foot forward. So this has to include a few special elements that really get you noticed, so that it's memorable and impressive. So it must be specific. So these factors need to tell what you have achieved or accomplished, not what role you were in, not what part you played, but those achievements that really knock it out of the ballpark. And like we mentioned before in the other one, you have to present quantifiable and measurable data, if at all possible. Okay, here's an example of a vague statement. Responsible for contract closing and revenue growth. Now here's an example of a specific statement. Grew contract closing 68% and increased gross revenue 40% for the following years. And then you list the years you did that. It needs to show action. You need to make sure that you can show the action by changing it from words like responsible for and duties included with action words like grew, developed, pioneered, or transformed. And again, that list is below of the 170 action verbs that you can check out and look at. They're going to help you to write a great resume. Again, where to include your wow factor. Now, the wow factor can go anywhere in your resume, but it has to be in specific places. And these places, this is what we're going to talk about, where they need to go. The resume summary. I've never been a fan of a bland, just safe resume summary. I'm a huge proponent of what I like to call a career snapshot, and that's what that resume summary should be. Some people call it a bio page, but it should be a career snapshot of who you are. So it's basically a beautiful picture of 2 or 3 of your wow factors in that particular bio. So it's going to have the most impressive and noteworthy information about you as a candidate. It gives the reader a quick glance at what you've accomplished throughout your career. So I also recommend that you do 2 or 3 of those wow statements. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to put too much in there. But you also want it to grab their attention, so that you need to put a couple in there that's going to make a difference, that's going to impress them. You can also put it at the top of your resume as a personal statement, and it tells them a little bit about you in the beginning. So remember, when writing your statement, be concise. You don't want to be too verbose, which means explaining something with more words than necessary. You don't want to do that. And it's harder to say what you need to say in fewer words. But those fewer words are more impactful if you can get the message across with the fewest words possible. Now, you're not giving them the whole story right now. Remember, you're trying to get in the door with this resume. You can give them the full story at the interview, but we still have to go over a little further details. Here are 3 examples of wow statements that I'm going to read to you. These wow statements were used on a client's resume who was a CEO, board member, and a chairman. I'm going to read these. This is what he says. Transformed the MRC company's operating model into a technological-enabled global contract services company with 30 locations in 7 countries. Defined the strategies to grow revenue from 20 million to 400 million plus. And the last one, co-founded and built a dedicated customer service business model that reached 3K employees in 3 years. So those are cool. Those are impressive. And that's what we want to do. We want to try to create that wow factor. Again, number 6, give your resume more wow. We keep talking about wow, but that's what we really want, isn't it? So this is the experience section. You want to list your responsibilities and what you did for the previous companies you worked for. You have to jump straight to the accomplishments that you had in that position. Now again, you're looking for a position that fits on that job description. You're immediately conveying success when you list your top accomplishments right in the beginning of that part of your resume, the experience section. I recommend including 2 or 3 of the major wins that you've had in the top categories or the top positions you've had at that experience part. So if you're struggling to come up with something, try to think about the best accomplishments that you had pertaining to that particular role. And then you'll think of something that is going to help you with that. You can try to think of the number 1 thing that you've achieved in those positions. So try to make these answers to these top 2 questions in your bullet points of that same CEO that he put on his resume as bullet points under the experience section. Here's what he says. Established a value-added board of directors that were fully aligned with the mission and vision of the organization and primed to take the business into the future. The second bullet point, produced consistent gains across the NPS and customer service, sales conversions, and quality with a largely Fortune 500 client base. Now we're going to talk about education honors, and awards. So it's recommended that you put these things at the top of your resume, and it kind of gives the idea, especially if it pertains to the role you're going for. Those kind of things are great, because they want to see that people respected you as well. There are many candidates who were honored like in the President's Club, but they never put it in their resume, and that's sad because they missed out on a great opportunity, and somebody else may have put that, and if they put it, they're going to look at them in a better light than they would have on the ones that didn't put that in there. So whatever those kind of things that you've been involved with and that you've had accomplishments, even if it's outside of work, but it's with those coworkers, put that in there. It's very, very vital to put those kind of accomplishments in there. And it can be a very powerful wow factor, and employees like to see that you're doing something for the community as well. They love hiring winners. So also, if you're seeking a job that requires an MBA or something like that, some degree, don't hide that at the bottom of your resume. Put that up there. That's an accomplishment. That's something that you should be proud of. So you would put that in the top of your resume as a brief note, because you still have the other parts of the resume where you can fill it out a little more detailed about those accomplishments. If you're struggling to find content to put into your wow factor or your wow parts of the resume, then here's some questions you could ask yourself. When have I contributed to the business's success, and with what results? How have I been publicly recognized? What do people come to me for? Which of my accomplishments have quantifiable data? Have I turned around a situation from failure to success? What role am I most proud of? That's a great question to ask yourself. And what am I most proud of in my career? So if you're looking for help with that, maybe seek out a mentor, seek out someone that could help you to sound better on your resume, and that'll help you to pinpoint exactly what you can put in there that'll make that wow factor stick out. So number 7, be specific. It's really easy to use words like proven track record or accomplished. Those are kind of common words that everybody uses, but you want to avoid those. They're very overused. So you think of something. I gave you that list in previous one of these tips, and it's a list of about 178 different action verbs that you can use to sound better. Here's an example of bullet points that are specific. Boosted employee satisfaction 15% despite headcount reductions. Transformed the team culture with renewed focus on training and professional development while breaking down barriers. Another one. Produced $4 million in annual cost savings. Deep dived into cost and risk assessment to balance the areas cost and risk profile and diverse forward action strategies. So those are some things that people have used in the past, those particular bullet points. And it can work for you too. Just tweak it to where it sounds good for you and fits your profile. Instead, stop and gather the information that made you successful. Put that together. The data about your accomplishments, the results, the track record, everything that can be written down, anything you can show on paper is going to make a big difference in how you sound. It's going to have more meaning and impact when the manager looks at it, when the hiring manager looks at it. Number 8, avoid common pitfalls. Before we finish this whole thing, I want to talk about a few common things that happen that people usually make a mistake about when they're filling out or redoing or making their resume. And I've seen this on far too many resumes. When you're writing your resume, try not to write it in the first person using I all the time. Those I statements really don't bode well as far as making you sound good. Resume writing is a form of concise writing. It's writing in the implied first person. You get the personal tone without saying I. That's what you're trying to do. So instead of writing things like I directed a Fortune 500 company, you would say directed hiring practices for a Fortune 500 company. It's an abbreviated form of writing. So here's something that you might not remember to do, but you got to do it, is proofread your resume. Use Grammarly. Grammarly is a great tool to help you to make sure everything is perfect. The T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, all of that. If you have a wordsmith that's a friend, that you know that is really good at editing, have them do it. I use my wife. She's amazing when it comes to editing anything and correcting anything that's either spoken wrong or maybe misspelled, anything like that. So that's something you've really got to check on so that everything looks good. Now, we've talked about overused phrases that are commonly used, and that is really a resume killer. So you got to be careful not to overuse statements that are very common. You want to opt for high impact phrases instead and leave out objective statements. And when you write about generic achievements, they don't really explain who you are and how you can accomplish what they are looking for in that job description. So those kind of generic things need to be left out because you want specific things that are going to really explain to the hiring manager why you should be working for them. So most employers want a team player, but you can't say I'm a team player. You just need to explain somehow in your resume that you are a team player. And remember, soft skills are very important. Do not forget to include them in the resume. Now, I'm not saying that you make a list of all of these skills that you have front and center on the resume, but you need to disperse them throughout. Maybe there's a place that you can talk about some of the soft skills you do have. So if you review all 8 of these steps, they're going to help you to really fill out a fantastic resume, and it's going to be a tool that's really going to help you to achieve the goal you're looking as far as getting a new job. It's going to help you accomplish that task. But you want to tell your story. Your story is going to be the most important thing when you tell your story from the beginning to the end. Appreciate everybody being here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for checking out Tim Talks. Don't forget to check the links below. Have a great day. Ciao, ciao.